Welcome to the Voices of Persevere podcast. I'm Jake, your host, and these are the stories behind the statistics, the people who prove that transformation isn't just possible, it's happening right now. And today we have Narayan Rabindranath with us. Narayan, thank you so much for being with me today. We got to visit a little bit yesterday, and so I appreciate you taking the time to share your story with me and with our listeners. Hey, tell me a little bit just about you and about where life is at right now. We're going to go backwards in the journey, but for right now, just tell us a little bit about what Narayan does in everyday life.
Okay, wow. It's a big question. I'm extremely blessed to um, live a different life than I have lived ever. So I currently work for Persevere as a project management instructor, and that is growing me. Right. I love the to be able to teach, but also I love to be able to build relationships with people. And that's just
Yeah.
it's been an awesome experience. Also, I've been blessed to be a part of a few other things. So I work on the side for Clarksville School of Fine Arts, probably 1 to 2 nights a week or during the weekend.
Oh, cool.
Um, and so I'm able to teach music. Right. And
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
and that kinda came about just, by happenstance, it would seem anyways, nothing's by chance. And so that's a blessing, and then also, I'm a part of another ministry called the Clarksville Jail Ministry, Tennessee, and so what this is just a support, group for the chaplain, at the jail, and so we provide, pretty much a pathway for inmates coming out of the jail, and we provide that link between them and churches so that most
Awesome.
people, I've been incarcerated. Most people that are in a revolving door, they don't have a lot of places to go, a lot of people to go to. They're literally going right back to what they knew. And yeah, I don't know if you know about it, but misery, it's right there where you left it. It's not changed, and a
Yeah.
lot of people get stuck in that revolving door. And so I'm blessed to be a part of that. And then a second ministry I'm a part of. This is a newer one. It's actually started from the church that I attend here in Clarksville. It's called If Only One, and so, if only one is we are a platform for Christ, right? We through social media content, we have content creators and people that are working with the organization. They write books. We're coming out currently with a movie. I'm giving a shameless plug. Is that all right? It's a
Yeah,
documentary
that's
called The
fine.
Knock. It's it's about a real life incident that happened, from a special forces operation
Oh,
in
wow.
2006. Two soldiers lost their life. I don't know if anybody's familiar with like Black Hawk Down, right? With that story, this is very similar, but it's essentially about the military knock. You know what happens when these families get the dreaded knock, and so it's
Yeah.
live interviews that we have with not only the family but everybody involved, the ones that had to actually deliver the message and to see where their lives are now, it's incredible. And so no one takes time to actually look at those little small details in the military. Something as dramatic as life events that could happen with families. So
Yeah.
that's coming out in January of 2027. January 15th is, I
Awesome.
believe, our
Awesome.
scheduled premiere. And so yeah, a lot of things going on.
Yeah. Man, it sounds like every avenue of your life is about giving back to the justice impacted community and doing that not only from a practical standpoint, but from a spiritual standpoint as well. Man, I appreciate just the work that you're doing and the authenticity and the diligence that you have in doing that. Um, so, man, just take us back, right? Before everything fell apart. We visited yesterday, and we both very much believe that God can be highlighted through our brokenness, right? When we're left to be in control of our own vehicle, we drive it straight into the ditch. And then God uses that for his own glory and makes it such that we can't take credit for it. So take us back before the crash. Talk about life there.
Yeah, I can start. So I've given my testimony. many times, and there's different highlighted parts. But I guess for the audience here and for the participants here, I can start, and I'm allowed to get as honest as real as possible, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So a lot of my trouble, started. I had a chip on my shoulders for years. I was didn't have an identity, didn't know who I was. A lot of that was from trauma. So and I'll just say it like this, my first sexual experience was with a man. At a very early age, I was molested. And so what that did was that caused this string of just agony and heartache, because what I did was I looked at people as not just opponents, but as uses. Looked at women as uses, trying to always regain this identity or gain this manhood. And so that led me I was already in a broken home. And so
Yeah,
that led me to drug use. That led me to, uh, I don't want to get too deep. That led me to doing really awful things, treating people um, like objects. And if
yeah,
you were in my way, that you either had to get out or I was just going to go through you. And yeah, and so there was no measure, to how wicked, how evil I could be at times. And it was from this pit of hurt. Everybody has some type of moral guidance. I like to think that, if your parents didn't instill it, hopefully your grandparents did. If you didn't have
yeah,
grandparents, then more than likely it was the people around you. And I would say for me, my grandmother was a huge influence in my life. She shared the gospel of Christ with me at an early age, right? I knew about Jesus. I knew that I was put on this planet for a reason, but all I'd experienced was hurt. So this whole idea that maybe there is a God out there and whatever, that never crossed my
yeah,
mind. I knew from an early age. And so that's all it was, though, is just knowing about this Jesus, about God, and not actually
yeah,
knowing him. There was no supernatural, there was no revelation to say, hey, this is real. And I like to think of it like this. you know, if in your life right now you step outside, right, on your front porch, beautiful day out, maybe it's raining, whatever, and then the Independence Day ship comes out, right, and just hovers and
yeah,
then goes away, you can't unsee that.
right,
You would be changed for the rest of your life. And so I liken it to that because that's what the encounter is. I would say for me, that's what happened. Now, it didn't just change me all of a sudden. I was into my 20s. I watched my mother pass away when I was 23, and that's the moment that God said, "Hey, you're mine." And I'm going to tell you, that didn't lead me to lead in some perfect life. That just opened my eyes to see what the world was created, for, and what has happened to the world. Like you
yeah,
said, just when we entered brokenness. Um, and so the Bible calls it sin, right? It's anything against the law of God. And I didn't realize that that was an actual thing. Growing up, I just heard about it. I was like, it's just a bunch of this. You
yeah,
know what I mean? But there's so much truth in that, and it defines why we see the worst things in the world. And so my mother passed away. I remember sitting there thinking, who is going to love me now? Like the umbilical cord to the earth was cut. I was broken. I was hurt. I was wounded wounder. Everybody says hurt people hurt people. Yeah,
yeah,
I definitely
yeah,
hurt people. And I had a girlfriend at the time, and we were toxic, absolutely toxic. Did the worst things. I mean, there was no moral code.
yeah,
So ripping, running, robbing, stealing, and the worst R-rated things you can think of were a part of that. And even after God said, "You're mine," it didn't dawn on me that I was actually doing wrong. I just was like, "Oh, what do I do?" Well, I married her. And I was like, that's what I do. And I didn't
Yeah.
realize that, I grew up in the South, so I didn't realize that when you do that, there's such a security uh, in marriage. I didn't
Right.
realize a lot of things. I was very self absorbed, always worried about my own hurts. So I never took the time to think outside of myself or think past my own nose. I was just only worried about my own hurts, desires.
Yeah.
And there was such a security in that. And it showed me for a moment, somebody else. I could care about somebody else, and the Lord used that to start drawing me to Him to care about more than myself, and that was the first step. Did it stop drug use? No. Did I want to stop drug use? Yes. Did it
Yeah.
stop cussing? No. Did I want to stop cussing? No. Did it stop doing things that were wrong inherently, and somehow I knew that they were wrong? No. But that's not everybody's story. See, mine is I was a go big or go home, right?
Yeah.
And I'm black or white with a lot of things. If I'm gonna do something, I'm 1,000% gonna do it. If I'm not, I'm not gonna scare away. I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
do anything that I didn't want to do, and if I did want to do something, I wasn't gonna be fearful about it. I was just gonna run in and do it. And so that kind of mindset took time to change and be renewed and thinking. It wasn't, so we had our first son in 2015. That was when the world kind of changed again for me. In
Yeah.
this time, I've never been a very stupid person, meaning I made stupid choices, but my intuition was decent and I could get along, right? I can assimilate into
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
different crowds and I could figure things out quickly enough, right? Quickly enough to survive and thrive. And so I was able to through connections and networking, even when I was a crazy guy, I was able to work at a few places that were I see now as a blessing. I stepped into Little John Engineering and I worked my way up. I was a rodman doing land surveying out in the woods.
Awesome.
And then I got an opportunity to work my way up to run an instrument and then to running a crew and then to doing structural layout for I got to lay out three of the high rises downtown. And so, I got skills along the way. It just doesn't mean my personal life and my mindset was clear or thinking was clear. It was bad thinking still and the way I treated people. But yeah, I had Abel changed my world. 10 months later, we had Japheth, my second son, and that changed my world again. He was a
Yeah.
preemie. That was a nightmare
Oh,
for me.
wow.
Um, because I was trying to just do a lot of things on my own. I was trying to maintain, this
Yeah.
facade. I'm working at a better place than I should be. I'm inside. I'm still broken, but I know that there's things that are getting worked out of me, and so I have some hope that I never felt before. You know, it wasn't until I made some poor choices along the way. Of course, I made very poor choices but it wasn't until a man had hurt my wife, and I never remember the news that she told me. Um, I saw this man in Madison, Tennessee, and I remember I got out of the car and I ran over and I made all the wrong choices out of anger and passion. Um, and I got so I got charged and cited, and so I'm a convicted felon now. Um, so aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and I went to jail. At this point, I forgot to say this. We had a house right there in Madison,
Mm.
right there off Corland Drive, which is right near Due West, near the Taco Bell, before Briley Parkway on Gallatin Road, and lost the house in this debacle.
Mm.
Um, Lost the family. Um, I was using drugs, turning to drugs, um, in and out of, in and out of incarceration, revolving door. I didn't care. I was homeless. And then I remember I just got out of jail and I get told my wife was in a car accident
Mm,
and she had passed away at the Sonic
oh,
on Gallatin Road. She was pulling out and a drunk driver was coming doing 70 miles an hour up Gallatin Road and hit the car
goodness.
and so that that right there sent me into a spiral because I was like I remember sitting there thinking and here's the bad thing is someone had found me to tell me this news. I was literally behind the Planet Fitness or off to the side of it. There's a soul
Yeah,
restaurant, a soul food restaurant on the side of it. And someone came over there and said, "Hey, no one's told you yet." And they told me, and I remember sitting there thinking, I was like, God, who's going to love me now? You know, it was
yeah,
the single greatest tragedy in my life. My mother was the second one, but up until that time, my mother was the single greatest tragedy in my life. And so, from there, it just was a spiral.
yeah, yeah,
I cried out to God. I pleaded. I said, Lord, why is this my life? What is going on here? Why can't I get a chance? Um, and thank God that those questions got answered with action and not
yeah,
words. Um, there was no telling me what was gonna happen before, but I remember I was, downtown. I used to my claim to fame, with some things is I could, do a lot of different things, right? I'm able to, problem solve very quickly, and so, I can do that. Well, someone had hurt me. I went into, it was a debacle that happened. I went into Vanderbilt University and I was bleeding really bad. And someone I had a guitar, I had a tote, a piece of luggage, and a backpack. And
oh,
like this
wow,
is the last of my stuff, and I'm like trying to get into the hospital. I'm bleeding really bad. It's like midnight, something of that. And
oh,
I remember I
wow,
get in there and they asked me, what's going on. We're gonna have the police come and talk to you. Of course, I'm like, no, I can't do anything with that. In the
yeah,
time, I was like, I don't want to. I'm going to cause in my mind, I'm going to cause a lot of problems for myself, and there's going to be a worse consequence to come from this. And so, what happened was they wound up sending me to St. Thomas Behavioral Health for a evaluation, psych evaluation. And at the time I had TennCare, and they said, when I got out of the psych, they were trying to feed me medication. I was like, I'm not taking the medication. They're like, okay. And they would ask me the same questions over and over, just trying to get me to flip a switch. And I never did. And they were like, okay, we're going to release you. Where would you like to go? And someone had offered me, I think it was like 6 months prior to that, they had said, hey, I've got a bed in
oh,
Clarksville here. If you'll come out here and rent a room from me, you can come and stay and start and as soon as you get a job. Well, I get out, I said tell them, hey, I'm gonna go to Clarksville. Well, they hire a tin care, does rides, and so I pack all that stuff up and I go to Clarksville. I only know one person, right? Just one person. And I get there and of course there's no bed. It's a
right,
couch and this house is rented out to multiple people.
oh,
So,
wow,
so I'm in everybody's way. Um, and I remember it was 2 days after I left there, or 2 days after I got there, I was like, "Lord, I gotta go to a church and hear preaching, hear the gospel." And so I walk and into the neighborhood, the tiny town road, and I see a church across the street. I'm like, "Thank you, Lord, thank you." I run over and it says, "Sign, doors are locked. Come and worship and serve with us." And another address. I'm like, "I'm not from here. I don't know where this is." And I remember praying. I was like, Lord, just show me the way. And of course, I'm Google Maps and Google Mapping where's the church, and then I find the Way Church, It was literally a block down the road, and I'd take off running. And yeah, the people of the church have lifted me up. I get to that church, and it was over from there. The house I was staying at, so I didn't know anybody really, but one person. The house I was staying at was not the most welcoming home. Though I have love for the people there, or the woman that offered it. But that didn't last long.
Yeah.
So in between me getting there and finding this church, about a week after it was in Clarksville. I went to Goodwill Career Solutions. I'm like, hey, I got to get a job quickly. They're like, "Hey, you qualify for this program." I said, "You know what? I'm on waiting list for all kinds of programs. Sign me up for one more." And at this time, I was on house vouchers. I mean, I was waiting for grocery bags, everything. I was on lists,
Yeah.
and so they signed me up for the Connecting Forward program. And anytime I get like I said, anytime I get an opportunity to throw myself into something, I typically throw myself into it.
Yeah.
um, Given any, constraints that I have, I'll ask for help. And I did. I learned to get out of my own way. I learned to ask for help in this time. And, this stint at the house, it didn't last very long. And so I wound up leaving there with a backpack, a guitar, a tote, and a luggage piece again. And I called the pastor of the church and said, "Hey, man, it was nice knowing you. I'm really thankful for you, and I know God is working where you are." And he said, "Man, you don't have to go. You can stay here at the church." I said, "Okay, awesome." So I go over to the church, and they have a room in the back. There's of course, this is greasy. There's no shower or anything. So I'm literally, it's
Mm.
summertime by this
Oh, wow.
point, and I'm taking showers in the hose out back. And
Oh,
by the
wow.
way, I'd gotten a job doing insulation just temporarily, and also I was helping with some of the needs of the church at this time while doing this Goodwill Career Solutions, while doing their program that they had. And one thing led to another. That room, so let me start back. There's a parsonage on to the church, a little house,
Mhm.
and they had already started a ministry called the Clarksville Covenant House. And what it is an overflow for foster care, kids that have aged out of the foster care system, women at that time that had aged out of the foster care system, and they had nowhere to go. They had no resources. A lot of them lacked hope, ambition, and had
Yeah.
making poor choices to get those children. So they were broken families, and this Covenant House would come in, provide not only care but resources for them and direction for the girls, and some
Yeah.
structure, right? And so it was an awesome program. Well, it had kind of taken some turns in a different direction, and they were like, "Hey, this is we have a need here." And I said, "Okay, well, let's turn it into a men's covenant house." And so I moved out of that room into this covenant house now, because they had no women at the time. And so we rewritten the bylaws at this point to not only include foster care but second chance, because by this time I'd gotten hired on to Persevere.
Awesome.
And so I learned a lot of verbiage, right, that I really liked. And I learned about different organizations with different missions that I really enjoyed, and Persevere's mission I can get behind, right? And so I started stealing the verbiage, which it's granted it's not stealing, right? But I started using the verbiage. So we now open this Covenant House men's ministry, and we provide the same resources, care, love, and a church to build up men. And now this room that I was staying in into the church turns into an office.
Mm.
And now I'm staying in the Covenant House, and I'm bringing in men, not only foster care. I mean, the I will say one of the hardest things I've ever done is to learn how broken the foster care system is. One of the
Yeah.
hardest things I've ever done, because we would have men, boys, really young boys, they aged out, and I, they had no purpose. right? I used to run around crazy, but I had an intention while I was crazy. I was hurt. A lot of them, they have no purpose, and so it was really a sad and disheartening thing. Though I stuck in and was resilient, and I offered them as much as I could, but there was a high turnover ratio. I mean, it was
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
men that did actually stay that were second chance. Those were the long term people. Those were the ones that, hey,
Oh, wow.
that they would stay in and for a year, we helped, a few of these guys plant roots, from, one guy was
That's awesome.
homeless most of his adult life, 30 years old, and helped him plant roots, is gonna get married, this coming up November. So just the awesome things that and I would say one of the biggest, motivators was seeing what we do here at Persevere kind
Mhm.
of, not only stealing the verbiage, but seeing the atmosphere and the environment. And so I mimic it. Anything that is good and that I
Yeah.
see that is
Yeah.
lifting up and encouraging to people, I will mimic it in a heartbeat. Why? Because it's
Yeah.
working. And so that Covenant House went on for, I guess, 2.5, almost 3 years. And the Lord blessed me with a house. So I was able to purchase a house last year, um,
That's
and
awesome.
get into that. And then from the Covenant House, now we've dissolved it, and now it's now a homeschool program, called Veritas, and what it is not just kids from the church, but if you go in Clarksville, it's similar to Nashville hotels. There's a line out there. I remember when I was homeless in Madison, and I saw the bus stop at the storage unit right there across from Wendy's,
Mm.
and I'm like, "This is a Metro bus." And I'm like, "Okay, that's where the bus stop is." But I'm seeing a line of kids coming out of the storage units because I actually had a
Oh,
storage unit. I
wow.
lived there, right? I
Yeah.
lived there, but I didn't realize how many people until I was homeless that were living there with kids. I was just hurt and I was really selfish. But these were people with kids living at a storage unit. And so the same way with the hotels. You have school buses stopping at a hotel and there's a line of kids. And so the Veritas is an opportunity to educate those kids. Obviously, there's things that public school doesn't offer, which is closer education. You have the public schools here are becoming a bit crowded. One teacher
Yeah.
for 30
Yeah.
kids on a standard curriculum is tough. It's tough. So that's an awesome ministry that's also going to part of the church, and from that spawned many other opportunities now. And so here I am, and so now my office has been moved from the back of the church, right? From living in that thing, taking showers out back, and it's been moved to now it's in the sanctuary.
Oh,
So
wow.
right behind me is the sanctuary, and so that's been my, steps of progression, and and where I'm at now, if you had asked me, 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, I'd have been like, "No, there's no way, that's not me," and so,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, my testimony is not only is Jesus real, but he makes you new.
Yeah.
That's what God came to do. He saves us by making us new, giving us a new heart.
So, welcome back to the Voices of Persevere podcast. Again, I'm Jake, your host. And of course, these are the stories behind the statistics, the people who prove that transformation isn't just possible, but that it's happening right now. Hey, we're still with Narayan. We ran into some tech issues, and so we're giving this a second shot. So, as you're watching, you've probably noticed that we've changed clothes, and that's because this is a different day. We thought that this was important enough so that you could hear the rest of the story, if I can steal that from Paul Harvey. And so, hey, Narayan, thanks again for joining us. I want to pick up where we left off, and I want to talk a little bit about you experiencing homelessness, right? You talked a little bit about that, and you talked about losing your mom. Talk to us a little bit about what led you to that situation, and then kind of guide us there from there to how you were introduced to Persevere.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the last time that we had spoke, I was talking a lot about and kind of shared, the self will and self determination, but no hope. right, and there was a lot of hopelessness, with despair in my
Yeah.
life, and it's been an ongoing thing through most of my life, and so, homelessness was inevitable. I just didn't see it coming, right?
Yeah.
I always turned to the wrong solutions, and I would, oftentimes be, an island unto myself. I didn't have a lot of people, a lot of, friends and family to reach out to. I didn't have a lot of people to support me, and so, that's what it is when you're kind of a loner at times. That's all you've got is you to lean on, and it was a shame because, truly, when I think back, I probably did have people to reach out to, but because of shame, guilt,
Yeah.
and despair, I didn't ever try to reach out to people. Um, yeah, so I don't know if I did share this part, but I was on the way, to Vanderbilt emergency room. Someone had, hurt me pretty bad, and I remember, when I got in there, I had literally a guitar, a backpack, a tote, and a suitcase, and I go into this hospital, and, I'm bleeding. And of course, they say, "Hey, we need to call the police. We need to do an investigation." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. There's no police." And they're they understood the situation. They could see me. I didn't look really good at all. They obviously assumed I was, which was probably good assumptions, that I was either on drugs, homeless, or had been into some kind of bad incident or circumstance.
Yeah.
And so I literally they put me into was it a 5 or 7 day evaluation, psych evaluation. Took me to St. Thomas Behavioral Health and off in Metro Center. And so they were trying to pump me of medicine and give me all kinds of medicine. I kept denying it, and they would do things it felt like, to irritate me. And I just, stayed relaxed. I wasn't crazy at the time, though I did crazy things. Um, but I remember the day they said, "Hey, we're going to release you. Uh, where do you, where would you like to go?" I had teen care at the time, and I told them, I'm going to go to Clarksville, Tennessee. Um, and so they got a teen care ride, lined it up, took me out to Clarksville, Tennessee, where I knew one person that about 6 months prior to that had said, "Hey, I've got a room for you. Come out." And when I get out there, of course, there's no room. There's just a couch to stay on, and I had still the backpack, the suitcase, a tote, and a guitar with me, and it was just kind of a mess. But I wound up running into when I first got out there, or here in Clarksville, I wound up looking for a job. I went into anywhere I could work, and I went into Goodwill, and of course they had a career solutions. Um, and my resume is pretty good. My work experience is pretty decent. I've worked and experienced different types of work and different facets at about this point in my life, and so I'm able to have an ability to work on a team, and accomplish the mission and purpose of an organization in a team setting. And so, that's decent. Just full of hopelessness. And so I turned to anything, and boom,
Yeah.
I get landed here at the Goodwill Career Solutions. They're like, "Hey, we got this Connecting Forward program. You qualify for it." I'm like, "Hey, one more program, sign me up." I'm on the waiting list on a whole bunch of others. And they signed me up, and boom, it was kind of over from there. They had some certifications plus some financial help. So I just, whatever they said, I did. I didn't,
Yeah.
I learned to, I've learned a few different times in life so far how to get out of my own way. But I will say this, when I've lost just about everything 3 times in my life, and I seem to rebuild. The first time, it was just devastating tragedy.
Yeah.
Um, and I seem to rebuild, and then I've lost everything again. And then I rebuilt even more, with more people involved, a family, and then lost everything again, including my family. And so it seems like, every time that happens, there's a chip that would grow on my shoulder even worse than before. And so this was the final straw. I learned truly how to just just move forward without all the baggage. And so,
Yeah.
I finished their program. They tell me, hey, we want to hire you here. All the people in the office were like, yeah, we got to have you work for us. And they weren't hiring at the moment. They were trying to get me in to the career solutions and working for Goodwill. And then they said, you know what? There's a partner of ours that is also hiring. And I said, okay, I will apply. They said it's Persevere. They were just beginning this partnership, and I was like, I'll apply for it. And it was through the Tech Alliance grant. And so I was like, okay. And so I did. And the first person I interviewed with was Kyoko. Um, and I didn't know what to think about it at first. I looked into before, I applied and I was looking into Persevere as an organization, just seeing what what is Persevere about. And the more I was researching, I was like, wow, this is an organization I could get behind. I really, I felt like, you know, the mission was close to home because of the people group.
Yeah.
I am the people group, that is behind the mission. And so my second interview was with Stacy Books. And honestly, how that interview went was I noticed a tattoo on Stacy's arm, something very sentimental and deep to her. And that's how the conversation started. And we had just shared briefly our testimonies, where we had been, and there was an automatic connection, right? We're talking the same language here. And that was probably the point that it said inside of me, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. And yet again, so once I started working for Persevere, I've still got the same attitude. If someone's like, hey, try this, I'm like, yeah, sure. But I'm black or white. So if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. If I'm not going to do it, I'm just going to say, nah, I'm not going to do that. Right. And that's kind of how I am. And I don't know why, but it's like, even with Persevere now, if someone gives me an opportunity, I just do it, right? I take it. If there's, it's the same with the participants here. I see myself in a lot of the participants, right? And I'm not talking about a record, a background. I'm talking about the chip on the shoulder, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Learning how to get out of your own way. I see myself in a lot of people, and so that I can speak to that, right? I also teach, music, right? So I teach music, and there's a saying, right? I don't know if I said this last time either. Um, I can teach anybody notes, right? I can teach you notes on a guitar, on a piano, whatever, but I can't teach you rhythm, right? And that's the
Yes.
same with this, right? I can teach you information, but I can't teach you how to see that you have the ability within yourself to use the information practically and to bring real world solutions to an organization, and how an organization will solve problems using this information. I can only show people how to get to that step. And that's one of the challenges I'm faced with. Just about every class that I have, every day, essentially, I'm faced with that challenge. And it's a good challenge because it's teaching me how to not only be a better communicator, but how can I present this doorway that people need to step through? How can I present it in a way where it's just very cavalier for them to step through it, right? Because a lot of people that have never stepped through a big entryway that will change their lives, they can mount up all this pressure. Say, oh my goodness, this is the grandest door to step through that's going to change my life. I can't even turn the knob. I can't. I'm getting. I got sabotage complex now. I can't even. I'm just not even going to do it. And so I'm really challenged with that aspect to saying, hey, this is it right here. I'm going to walk with you through this. And yeah, and so I'm really thankful to be at Persevere, and I pour my heart, not just my time, of course, and my skill and my brain, but I pour my heart into it, and it's really paid
Yeah.
off.
Awesome.
I have made connections here that will last, the rest of my life, you know?
For sure. Yeah. So, just so that people kind of have an understanding, you teach project management at Persevere, and I've heard of people who've gone through the program who speak to your ability not just as a project manager, but as an instructor and a mentor. So, talk to us a little bit about what people learn when they go through the project management curriculum.
So there is a standard way to everything. Everything that you do, there's standards, and so we use a course that is essentially guided by the Project Management Institute's standards. You know, the project management body of knowledge, and the rest of the world uses it as well. So we don't try to reinvent the wheel. Um, we teach the waterfall methodology, the agile methodology, which is used in a lot of software development, and also, you know, healthcare and education, the standards in those methodologies. And so the course is pretty expansive, but really what this participants they're able to utilize is the real world aspect of applying this knowledge. So when they're in
Yeah.
class, we're actually walking through. I have stakeholders that are vendors that I partner with, and they come in and they sit in and help as far as, you know, we had I'll give you an example. We had a t-shirt fundraising project, right? That each student, they had their own teams. And so they start from initiating this project, planning it, and during the planning phase, you know, we needed to actually reach out to vendors for each aspect. You know, who were we going to purchase the T-shirts from?
Yeah.
What was the project goals of this T-shirt fundraiser? Well, they would come up with these project goals, and then we would, you know, figure out how to put these in practice. So I would have vendors come in and interview with them real time, giving real world solutions. And that was an awesome learning experience. And it is every class, because I do that just about every class. I have these simulated projects that we run so that people can know how to communicate with others, just to get information clearly across, and to take information in. So.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Let's pivot for just a second because I know that this is important to you. It's very important to me. For those of you who are listening, you don't know this, but before each of our sessions, Narayan and I have taken the opportunity to pray, just that this will be used in the way that it's meant to be used. And so, Narayan, I want to talk to you specifically about your faith, right? Talk to us about how that relationship with King Jesus has been central to your story of restoration and redemption.
Oh wow, that's a deep question you asked. So you know, I know we spoke about it in the last meeting. Um, Everything in this life is a divine appointment. There's no happenstance. There's no chance, right? There's no spinning of the dice or flipping of the coin. Everything, our meetings, our daily interaction, there's a divine
Yeah,
providence, meaning a divine intervention that's happening. And so that is lived out in my life. Right. I don't think it's just by some coincidence that I come into contact with the people that I come into contact with. So using that lens right there, it's much more precious to me
yeah,
to show my heart, but also give the best of my ability to each person, because I recognize that there's a divine agent in being Christ Himself that has placed me here, and that is showing me, hey, He's given me every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places, it says. That means for my daily walk, right? For my daily life, I'm giving everything that's essential, even the interactions with people.
yeah,
And so I'm not concerned about tomorrow. I have no anxiety. You know, if I were to, if life were to change for me dramatically, even today, everything would be okay, right? Um, I know
for
that there
sure.
is a purpose for my being, and I know what that purpose is, and so I can walk in that purpose. And it's, let me say this last part very carefully. My hope is not in what I can accomplish, but my hope is in what has been accomplished on my behalf.
Yeah.
And I'll say it as covert as I can that way.
I hear you. So, I mean, we're thinking about, right, thinking about second chances, thinking about people who have been justice impacted and, trying to reacclimate into society, not only with a new set of skills that they're learning in the Persevere curriculum, but also, in the professional career world. And when you have been justice impacted, when you have had so many doors slammed in your face, that has the potential to leave people jaded and discouraged and skeptical, right? So, what would you say to people who either are interested in going through the Persevere curriculum or who have just begun? What would you say to them specifically about that connection of second chance and faith?
Um, there's a saying that needs to be learned by everyone that has a background, right? There's never rejection in your life. You're never being rejected. It's redirection. So if
Mm,
there's a divine providence that's happening in my life, a divine intervention that's happening, that God is lining all things for my life, then every closed door is for my good because there's another door that's open that maybe I'm not doing my due diligence in looking for it at the moment. Um,
yeah,
and I should never have any anxiety about what door will be open for me because I have a hope in this purpose that's been laid out because there is a door open for me. Do I
yeah,
have patience to know, and do I have faith to believe that God cares for me? Do
yeah,
I actually have the knowledge to understand who this God is and his attributes and characteristics? And do I have a connection to know him, you know? So,
yeah,
yeah, it's never rejection, it's redirection. And that is a saying that I had to learn the hard way because, yes, you said a term that's very familiar, jaded, right? I get one
yeah,
door slammed in my face, and then I'm saying that it's me that's not enough. I get a second door slammed in my face, and instead of saying, maybe it's just that person, I say, it's me. Yet again, that's not enough, and that's not the case.
yeah,
That's not the case at all. I would say one thing I had to learn was, and I still realize this, and there's a lot of people that can probably side with this. There are things that I have done that others haven't that I sit in the room with or sit on a meeting with. There are things that I have done that are awful that others will never in their life do that I sit in the room with. And I have to just let all that go.
yeah,
Forget all of that because people don't see me like that. And there's another saying, you never perceive yourself as others perceive you,
right,
right? And there's a truth to that because that's one of the things that with that chip on the shoulder, I used to think it was a log holding me down. I would walk around, but I looked around one day and it was just air, right? It was me. And so I have to let that go, right? What I have to bring to the table is the skills that are set in front of me. But here's what the most important part that I teach all of my students that I have to bring to the table is now at this age, I still have the ability to learn because I have used this time wisely to learn how I learn and I
yeah,
can learn anything. Sometimes it may take me a little bit longer the older I get, you know, but I have the ability to keep learning. And
yeah,
that's one of the most important parts of Persevere's program and what we do here. And that I could tell everybody it's not about the certificate that you're going to get, right? That's important. It's not about the skill that you're going to be trained up in. That's important. But it's the ability that you're going to gain here, which is the ability to keep on learning. Because after you gain that skill and the certification and even the job, or the career, you have to keep on learning in that career, right?
yeah.
And there's nobody that was, using MS-DOS back in 1998 that's still using it the same way right
Right,
now.
right.
It just doesn't happen. Well, I mean, a little bit, but not, but essentially, you know what I'm trying to get at. It doesn't happen like that. Um,
Yeah,
So we're always in this perpetual state of learning and
For
and
sure.
readjusting, adjusting to the situation and adapting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. One of the things that you said triggered something that's really valuable and important to me as a person, right? Um, before my own justice impacted world, came crashing down, I was always a really high achiever, and I thought that my value was somehow tied to what I could do, right? But there's a reason that God calls us human beings and not human doings, right? I have value because I'm a human, because I'm created in the image of God, not just based on what I can do, not just based on my output, right?
yeah,
And I've had to really, um, reframe and reshape my mindset because for the longest time, I thought my only value was what I could offer to other people. And being justice impacted has transformed the way that I think about that. It also
yeah.
has transformed the way that I think about other people
Mm,
because, I thought that I was only valuable if I could produce value for others. I also thought about other people the same way, that they were only valuable to me if I could find value in what they were producing. And that's not the case, right? We all have value because we're all made in the image of God. Unfortunately, it took being in justice impacted and my world crashing down for me to realize that.
yeah.
So I appreciate what you said so, so much.
Couple of things there. This transactional feeling, right? Um,
Yeah,
you know, when God sought me out and changed my heart, the first thing I wanted to do was do everything right. And I thought I had to do all these things, but I didn't do it from a heart of gratitude. I didn't actually love him more than I love myself to do these things. I just wanted to stay in good graces.
yeah,
I wanted to stay on the good side of God. And there's no such thing as, staying on the good side of God. That's a transactional fallacy that we all have invented for ourselves. And what you're hearing in my testimony is not a man that's been through a lot of despair. You're hearing a man full of pride that God
yeah,
has been reaching out to and has taken everything away from a man so that that man would put his eyes on the one true living God and take him and stop worshiping everything that he obtains and everything that's
yeah.
around him. And that
Yes.
would be the biggest part of my testimony is that my eyes will quickly go off of the gift giver and go on to the gifts. And it says that, we can worship anything. I mean, if you go into you can go into the house of all kinds of gods. We just call them different things in this country. We spice them up. The God of NFL, right?
Yeah.
I'm not pushing down on people that love football. I'm just saying that, we glorify all these things, and then here's the one important part is that, anything that's taken away from you that you can't live without, that is your God. And that's the
Yeah.
scary part. It's if my question for a lot of people that are professing believers, it's like if right now if your life were to go upside down and everything was ripped away from you, your family, your money, your morality, your face in the public, everything but salvation. Would that salvation from Christ be enough, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We would love to answer that really quickly, but to really take an honest evaluation of ourselves, um, that might shock us, right?
Yeah.
Because if at the end of the day, all I have is my relationship with my king, am I really content with that being enough, or do I still want all of that other stuff? So, yeah,
Oh, I want all the other
absolutely.
stuff. That's my problem. That's that's where he's brought me to a point where it's like, and he is the one that keeps bringing me to this point of, hey, I'm enough, because that's my
Yeah.
problem. I want, I got to have things lined up. I'm in project management, so I got to know that my numbers are good. who's doing what tasks, when do I need to be where, and then I need to think about these scenarios beforehand so that if anything happens, I can go ahead and take care of it. That's showing you
Yeah,
right there my lack of my little bit of faith, right? If I can take care of everything, then I can just worry about faith later, and that's not the way it is. So
sure, sure. Man, Narayan, thanks so much for visiting with me.
yeah.
Um, as we come to a close, man, how can people reach out to you if they have questions or they're looking for mentorship or they're thinking about the project management pathway at Persevere? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I have this, I've got a sorry for even bringing that up. I've got my thing blurred. Yes, through Persevere, you can contact, our phone number. Uh, you can get on our website and you can reach out that way. My email, I don't know if we're gonna have that posted. Yeah,
Yeah, we
I
can definitely do
definitely,
that.
yeah, post my email, and let me know. I'm definitely willing for anybody to reach out to me, and I'm pretty much an open book. I've gotten to the point of being humbled to being that
Yeah,
way. I can share what I've been through because I realize now that there's a lot of other people that have been through it.
yeah,
There's a lot of people that have been through what I've been through. Um, and it's not until someone shared it with me that I was able to share and say, "Hey, this is what I've been through." And
right.
so passing that along is a blessing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, man, thanks so much again for sharing your story and for the great things that you're doing. And if you're listening, thank you for tuning in to Voices of Persevere. And if Narayan's story has moved you, just imagine the hundreds more just like it happening across the country. To learn more about our mission, to see how you can get involved or support the next generation of tech professionals, visit us at perseverenow.org. That's perseverenow.org. Narayan, thanks so much for being with us today, man.
Thank you, Jake.
We'll see ya.
See you.